The text came in at 1:17 in the morning. Ethan Walker stared at the glowing screen while rain hammered against the apartment windows, and for a moment, he honestly thought he was still dreaming. "I've had my fun, now I'm ready to be a wife again." That was all Vanessa wrote. No apology, no explanation, no acknowledgement of the wreckage she left behind 14 months earlier when she walked out of their marriage holding another man's hand like Ethan had never mattered at all. Ethan read the message 3 times. Then a fourth. His chest tightened with the same familiar pain he'd spent over a year trying to bury under overtime shifts, therapy appointments, and silent nights alone in a one-bedroom apartment that still smelled faintly like her vanilla perfume whenever it rained. He should have deleted the text immediately. Instead, he sat there frozen on the edge of his couch, thumb hovering over the screen while old memories clawed their way back into his mind. The wedding. The promises. The lies. And worst of all, the last day he saw her as his wife. 14 months earlier. "Do you ever think we settled down too early?" Vanessa asked it casually over dinner, like she was commenting on the weather. Ethan looked up from his plate. What? They were sitting at a rooftop restaurant in downtown Chicago celebrating their 5th wedding anniversary. The skyline glowed behind her. Soft jazz played through hidden speakers. Everything should have felt romantic. Instead, Ethan felt something cold move through his stomach. Vanessa swirled wine around in her glass without looking at him. "I don't know. Sometimes I wonder if we missed out on life." He forced a small laugh. "You make it sound like we're 80. "I'm serious." That was the first crack. Tiny. Almost invisible. But once Ethan noticed it, he started seeing them everywhere. Vanessa stopped touching him first. Stopped laughing at his jokes. Started guarding her phone like it contained nuclear launch codes. Then came the girls' nights. At first, Ethan didn't question them. Vanessa had always been social. Beautiful people usually were. She had the kind of face strangers remembered and the kind of confidence that filled entire rooms before she even spoke. Men noticed her constantly. Ethan used to feel proud about that. Until he started noticing how much she enjoyed the attention. "You're overthinking," his best friend Marcus told him one night over beers. "Every marriage goes through phases." Ethan wanted to believe that. He really did. So he ignored the growing distance between them, ignored the late-night texting, ignored how she smiled at her phone more than she smiled at him. Then one Friday night, everything shattered. Vanessa said she was having dinner with coworkers. Ethan almost went to bed early, but around 10:30, he realized she'd forgotten her iPad at home. It buzzed on the kitchen counter while he cleaned dishes. One message lit up the screen. "Jason, already miss your body." Ethan froze. His pulse roared in his ears. Another message appeared seconds later. "Jason, tonight was worth every risk." Ethan felt like the floor disappeared underneath him. His hands shook as he unlocked the iPad. Vanessa had once told him her password because married people shouldn't have secrets. The irony nearly made him sick. There were hundreds of messages. Photos. Hotel reservations. Videos. Plans. His wife wasn't just cheating. She was in love with another man. Ethan sat at the kitchen table until nearly 2 in the morning reading through months of betrayal, while the apartment around him felt less and less like home. Jason Reynolds. 30. Divorced. Real estate developer. According to Vanessa's messages, he was exciting, dangerous, and everything Ethan is. That line hit hardest. Not because it was cruel. Because Ethan suddenly realized she meant it. The front door opened around midnight. Vanessa walked in laughing at something on her phone before stopping cold when she saw him sitting there. The iPad rested on the table between them. Her face drained of color. For 3 full seconds, neither of them spoke. Then Ethan quietly asked, "How long?" Vanessa closed the door slowly behind her. "Ethan." "How long?" "Please don't do this right now." He laughed once. A broken sound that barely sounded human. "You've been sleeping with another man for months, and you don't want to do this right now." Vanessa rubbed her forehead like he was the problem. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. The words punched the air out of his lungs. Not I'm sorry. Not it didn't mean anything. Just regret she got caught. Ethan stared at her. Do you love him? She didn't answer fast enough. And that silence told him everything. Vanessa sank into the chair across from him. I never wanted to hurt you. But you did. Tears filled her eyes instantly, but Ethan noticed something terrifying. They looked more frustrated than guilty. I've been unhappy for a long time, she whispered. Ethan felt physically ill. Then why didn't you talk to me? I tried. No, you didn't. Yes, I did, she snapped suddenly. You stopped seeing me, Ethan. You got comfortable, predictable. Every day felt exactly the same. He stared at her in disbelief. I worked 60 hours a week so we could buy the house you wanted. And I appreciated that. Did you? The room went silent. Vanessa looked away first. That hurt too. Because deep down, Ethan realized she'd emotionally left their marriage long before tonight. What happens now? He asked quietly. Vanessa inhaled slowly. Then she said the sentence that destroyed whatever remained of his heart. I think I need space. Space. Such a harmless little word for something that detonates lives. Ethan nodded slowly while fighting tears. You mean him? She didn't deny it. 3 days later, Vanessa moved out. 1 week later, Ethan saw photos of her and Jason together on social media, smiling on a beach in Miami, while he sat alone in the house they once planned to fill with children. The humiliation nearly killed him. Friends stopped calling because nobody knew what to say. His mother cried every time he visited. Even grocery shopping became torture because every aisle reminded him of her. Her favorite coffee creamer. Her shampoo brand. The stupid frozen waffles she loved even though she claimed she was dieting. Grief turned ordinary things into landmines. But the worst part wasn't losing Vanessa. It was losing the future he thought they had. For months, Ethan barely functioned. He lost 15 pounds. Couldn't sleep. Couldn't concentrate. Some nights he sat in complete darkness, replaying every conversation from their marriage, trying to pinpoint exactly where he failed. Maybe if he worked less. Maybe if he planned more dates. Maybe if he noticed sooner. Therapy helped eventually. Not quickly. Not dramatically. But little by little, Ethan started rebuilding himself. He sold the house because every room haunted him. Started boxing classes. Started saying yes when coworkers invited him out. Started learning how to exist without waiting for Vanessa to come home. Then one night, about 8 months after the divorce papers finalized, Marcus dragged him to a charity event downtown. You need human interaction, Marcus insisted. I interact with humans every day. You interact with spreadsheets and construction workers. Same thing. Marcus ignored him and practically shoved him through the ballroom entrance. That's where Ethan met Lily. She stood near the dessert table arguing with a bartender about whether cheesecake counted as a personality trait. Ethan accidentally laughed out loud. Lily turned toward him immediately. You agree with me, right? He blinked. I don't even know the argument. Exactly, that means I'm winning. She had warm brown eyes and an easy smile that didn't feel calculated. Nothing about her screamed for attention the way Vanessa always had. Lily seemed comfortable simply existing. It felt peaceful. By the end of the night, Ethan realized he'd spent 2 straight hours talking without once thinking about his ex-wife. That terrified him almost as much as it excited him. Lily worked as a pediatric nurse. She loved terrible horror movies and pineapple pizza. She cried during animal rescue commercials and once drove 3 hours to help a stranded friend replace a flat tire. She was kind in ways Vanessa never bothered pretending to be. Still, Ethan kept emotional distance for months. Trauma does that. It teaches you to inspect happiness for hidden knives. But Lily remained patient. No games. No manipulation. No disappearing acts. Just consistency. When Ethan finally told her the full story about Vanessa, They sat together on his apartment balcony while city lights flickered below them. Lily listened quietly, without interrupting. When he finished, she asked softly, "Do you still love her?" Ethan thought about it honestly, then shook his head. "No," he admitted, "but some days I still miss who I thought she was." Lily nodded like she understood completely. And maybe she did. That night she simply held his hand, while silence settled comfortably between them. No drama. No chaos. No emotional performance. Just peace. Ethan had forgotten relationships could feel like that. Which is why Vanessa's text now felt so dangerous. Because despite everything, some wounds never fully close. He stared at the message again. "I've had my fun, now I'm ready to be a wife again." Like their marriage was a jacket she tossed aside during summer before deciding she wanted it back for winter. The arrogance of it stunned him. But underneath, the anger lurked something uglier. Temptation. Not to take her back, but to ask why. To understand what happened. To hear her explain how someone destroys another person so completely, then casually reappears expecting conversation. Ethan tossed the phone onto the couch. Immediately picked it back up. Then threw it again harder. "Don't do it," Marcus warned the next morning after Ethan forwarded him the screenshot. They sat inside a coffee shop before work, while Ethan looked exhausted from barely sleeping. Marcus stared at the text like it personally offended him. The nerve of this woman is unbelievable. Ethan rubbed his jaw. "I know. No, seriously, I've had my fun. What is she, a supervillain?" Despite himself, Ethan laughed weakly. Marcus leaned forward. "Listen to me carefully. People like Vanessa only come back when life punches them in the face. You think things ended with Jason? I'd bet my truck on it." Ethan stared down at his coffee. Marcus lowered his voice. "You finally started healing, man. Don't reopen this." "I'm not going to." "Good." But Ethan still couldn't stop thinking about the text. Especially because part of him needed answers. And unfortunately, Vanessa knew that. 3 days later, she texted again. "Can we please talk, just once?" Ethan ignored it. Then another message arrived. "I know I don't deserve it, but please." Lily noticed something was wrong almost immediately that weekend. They were making dinner together when Ethan accidentally dropped an entire bowl of chopped vegetables onto the floor. Lily looked at him carefully. "Okay, what's happening in that brain?" "Nothing." "Ethan." He sighed heavily, then handed her his phone. Lily read the messages silently. To Ethan's surprise, her expression didn't turn angry or jealous. Mostly sad. "She came back because things fell apart," Lily said quietly. "You sound very certain." She thought excitement would make her happy forever. It usually doesn't. Ethan leaned against the counter. "Do you think I should respond?" Lily took a long breath before answering. "That depends." "On what? Do you want closure, or do you want her back?" The question hit harder than he expected. Because for the first time, Ethan realized those were two very different things. "I don't want her back," he said firmly. Lily studied him. Then nodded slowly. "Okay. Aren't you mad?" "I trust you." Those 3 words nearly broke him. Because after Vanessa, Ethan forgot trust could exist without conditions attached. Lily stepped closer. "But if you meet her, you need to understand something." "What?" "People who hurt you don't automatically deserve access to the healed version of you." The sentence stayed with him all night. 2 days later, Ethan finally replied. One conversation, public place. Vanessa answered immediately. "Thank you." They agreed to meet Saturday afternoon at a quiet cafe near the river. The second Ethan saw her walking toward him through the window, old memories slammed into him like a freight train. Vanessa looked almost exactly the same. Long blonde hair. Designer coat. Confident posture. Beautiful enough to turn heads without trying. But something had changed too. The arrogance she once carried so effortlessly looked cracked around the edges. Like life had finally introduced consequences. She sat across from him slowly. For a moment, neither spoke. Then Vanessa whispered, "You look good." Ethan kept his expression neutral. "Why did you text me?" She looked down at her coffee cup. "Because I made the biggest mistake of my life." There it was. The speech he once dreamed about hearing. Yet somehow, now that it finally arrived, it felt empty. Ethan folded his hands calmly. "What happened with Jason?" Vanessa gave a bitter laugh. "You really want the honest answer?" "Yes." Her eyes glistened slightly. "Jason loved the version of me that didn't require responsibility." Ethan said nothing. Vanessa stared out the window. Everything with him was exciting at first. Trips, parties, expensive dinners, no routines, no pressure. And eventually, I realized excitement isn't the same thing as stability. Ethan almost laughed at the understatement. Vanessa swallowed hard. "He cheated on me." The irony landed between them heavily. Ethan stared at her quietly. "He was seeing multiple women," she admitted. "I found out 6 months ago." "And you stayed." "I thought I could fix it." The words sounded painfully familiar. Because Ethan once said the exact same thing about their marriage. Vanessa finally met his eyes. "Do you know what the worst part was?" "What?" "He looked at me the same way I looked at you when I left." That hit deeper than Ethan expected. Not because he felt satisfaction. Because he recognized genuine regret in her voice for the first time. Vanessa wiped at her eyes quickly. "I spent months convincing myself I deserved better than the life we had. But Ethan, you were the best thing that ever happened to me." Too late. Far too late. Ethan leaned back slowly. "Then why was I enough when it mattered?" Vanessa opened her mouth. Closed it again. No answer came. Because there wasn't one. Finally she whispered, "I was selfish." For the first time since sitting down, Ethan believed her. But honesty didn't erase damage. Vanessa inhaled shakily. "I know I destroyed everything. I know I don't deserve another chance, but I needed you to know I understand that now." Ethan watched her carefully. A year ago, hearing these words would have shattered him emotionally. Now, mostly he felt tired. Vanessa reached carefully across the table. "I miss you." Ethan looked at her hand. Then slowly moved his own away before she could touch him. Pain flashed across her face instantly. And for once, she understood exactly how rejection felt. "I loved you more than I knew how to survive," Ethan said quietly. "And you treated that love like it was disposable." Tears rolled down Vanessa's cheeks. People nearby pretended not to notice. Ethan continued calmly. "Do you know what the hardest part was after you left?" She shook her head. "Realizing the person I would have died for didn't mind watching me break." Vanessa covered her mouth as she cried silently. But Ethan no longer felt responsible for comforting her. That chapter of his life was over. "I never wanted to destroy you," she whispered. "You did anyway." The truth settled heavily between them. Outside, rain began falling softly against the cafe windows. Vanessa stared at him desperately. "Is there really no chance for us?" Ethan thought about the man he used to be. The version of himself who would have accepted breadcrumbs just to keep her close. That man was gone now. And strangely, Ethan missed him less every day. "There was a time," he admitted quietly, "when I would have forgiven anything if it meant keeping you." Vanessa's eyes filled with fragile hope. Then Ethan finished speaking. "But that was before I learned what love is supposed to feel like." Her expression fell instantly. And for the first time since the divorce, Ethan realized he truly meant it. Vanessa stared at him across the cafe table like she already knew another woman existed. Maybe she heard it in his voice. Maybe heartbreak teaches people to recognize when they no longer own space inside someone's heart. Her fingers tightened around the coffee cup. "There's someone else." It wasn't a question. Ethan hesitated for half a second before answering honestly. "Yes." The word landed softly, but it changed everything. Vanessa looked down immediately, blinking hard as emotion flickered across her face. Jealousy, regret, grief, probably all three. "How long?" she asked quietly. "A few months." "Is it serious?" Ethan thought about Lily laughing in his kitchen, while flour dusted her nose because she somehow turned baking cookies into chaos. He thought about the nights she sat beside him during panic attacks without asking him to just move on already. He thought about how peaceful life felt around her. "Yes," he answered. Vanessa nodded slowly like she deserved that pain. And maybe she did. Still, Ethan found no joy in watching her hurt. That surprised him. For months after the divorce, he fantasized about this exact moment. Vanessa realizing she lost him, Vanessa regretting everything, Vanessa begging for another chance while he walked away untouched. But reality felt different. Sadness replaced satisfaction. Because no matter how much she hurt him, she was still someone he once loved enough to build his entire future around. "You love her?" Vanessa asked. Ethan met her eyes. "I'm learning how." That answer broke something inside her. He could see it happen in real time. Because Vanessa understood what he meant. Real love wasn't fireworks and adrenaline and reckless excitement. It was safety, consistency, effort, choosing someone repeatedly even after the honeymoon phase disappeared. The very things she abandoned. Vanessa wiped tears from her face quickly. "Does she know about me?" "She knows everything. And she's okay with you meeting me. She trusts me." Another painful silence followed. Vanessa laughed weakly through tears. "God, I really ruined my own life." Ethan didn't respond. Because what could he say to that? She did. The waitress stopped by awkwardly to refill drinks before escaping the emotional battlefield at their table as quickly as possible. Vanessa stared out at the rain. "Jason used to tell me you were boring." Ethan raised an eyebrow. "I know," she whispered. "It sounds horrible." "It is horrible." She nodded. "At the time, I wanted excitement so badly that I convinced myself stability was weakness." Ethan remembered all the nights he spent home while Vanessa chased parties and rooftop bars with coworkers. He remembered how embarrassed she sometimes looked when introducing him to flashy friends because he wasn't loud or arrogant or rich enough to dominate conversations. He remembered trying to become someone else just to keep her interested. And suddenly, he felt angry again. Not explosive anger. Something colder. "You know what's funny?" Ethan said quietly. Vanessa looked up cautiously. "I spent months after the divorce thinking I failed you somehow." He gave a bitter smile. "I thought if I worked less or dressed better or acted more exciting, maybe you would have stayed." Pain crossed her face immediately. "But eventually, I realized something." Ethan leaned forward slightly. "The problem wasn't that I wasn't enough. The problem was that you needed constant validation from people who didn't care about you." Vanessa flinched like he slapped her. Because deep down, she knew it was true. She'd spent years chasing attention like it could fill something broken inside her. And maybe Jason represented that perfectly at first. Expensive gifts, luxury hotels, endless compliments, the thrill of sneaking around behind Ethan's back. But thrill has an expiration date. Reality always arrives eventually. "I hated myself after you found out," Vanessa whispered. Ethan almost interrupted. But she kept going. "You probably think I left and never looked back, but that's not true." Her voice cracked. "The first night I slept in Jason's apartment after moving out, I cried in his bathroom for an hour because I realized I'd destroyed my marriage." Ethan stared at her silently. Vanessa laughed bitterly. "And you know what I did after crying?" "What?" "I walked back out there and pretended I was happy because admitting I made a mistake felt impossible." That sounded believable. Pride traps people inside terrible decisions all the time. Vanessa shook her head slowly. "Every month that passed made it harder to admit I threw away the one person who actually loved me." Ethan studied her carefully. For the first time since she entered the cafe, she looked less like the confident woman who shattered his life and more like someone exhausted from running away from herself. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," she whispered. "That's good." Her eyes watered again. She paused. "I needed you to know I finally understand what I lost." Ethan looked down at the table. A year ago, hearing this would have felt like victory. Now it mostly felt tragic. Because growth arrived too late for both of them. Vanessa checked the time and inhaled slowly. I should go. Ethan nodded once. But before standing, she looked at him carefully. Can I ask one selfish question? You already asked several. Despite herself, she smiled faintly. Then her expression turned serious again. Did you ever hate me? Ethan answered honestly. Yes. The word hit hard. Vanessa looked down immediately. But eventually, he continued quietly, I realized hating you kept me emotionally tied to the worst thing that ever happened to me. She listened silently. So I stopped hating you, Ethan shrugged lightly, not for your sake, for mine. Vanessa's tears returned instantly. Because sometimes indifference hurts more than rage. She stood slowly, grabbing her purse. I really am sorry, Ethan. This time, he believed her completely. And somehow, that made everything even sadder. Vanessa lingered beside the table like she wanted to hug him goodbye. But Ethan stayed seated. Eventually, she nodded to herself. Then walked away. Ethan watched her disappear into the rainy Chicago afternoon, feeling strangely hollow. Not devastated. Not relieved. Just finished. Like the final page of a painful chapter, finally closed. His phone buzzed 20 minutes later while he sat alone, staring out the cafe window. Lily, how are you holding up? Ethan smiled despite himself. She apologized. 3 dots appeared immediately. Lily, and... Ethan looked toward the rain-covered street where Vanessa vanished moments earlier. Then typed,